In 1998, I released this tape under the name True Believer. It was a tape of what we used to call a live PA demo, right? Because it was like if in the techno rave scene, if you were a DJ playing the vinyl, you were a DJ. But if you set up the equipment with the synthesizers and the keyboards and the mixers and the sequencers and stuff, that was called a live PA because you were playing live over the public announcement system. So it was called a live PA. So this was a demo of my live electronic music set. So it was a live PA demo. And the reason that my nom de techno was True Believer, it was I took it from when I moved up to Amherst, Massachusetts for the second round of my Massachusetts experience, because I went to UMass Amherst in two rounds. You know, I took me to like a long time to get my undergraduate degree, and I visited the University of Massachusetts campus twice. So this is like the second round. It's 1998. I go up. One of the girls who helped me move from New Jersey to Massachusetts was a girl that ended up being my wife, my ex-wife now, but she ended up being my wife and the mother of my children much these later on. Remember, 1998 is 25 years ago, the 25-year nostalgia loop, right? Jilly Beans, Massachusetts rocks. Absolutely, absolutely. What's up? When I moved up to Massachusetts, this is back in the day, so we're spoiled. The kids are spoiled now with the all the internet streaming services and whatever. To the degree that we had internet, right? And when I moved, so everybody knows, like, so I'm like, I've got like zero executive functioning skills. So the story with me always was whenever I moved into a new place, it would always take me like a month to get cable. Not because like I couldn't afford it, but it would just like take me like that long to get like I'd get to the location, you gotta get like shit set up and like whatever, and it would just like take me like that long to get my shit together, to be like okay, to get like sick and tired of watching tapes, to get together, to be like okay, we're doing this. So whatever. So when I first got to UMass again, like Massachusetts, it was like the old story of like I had like I was like never a big collector of like physical media, like movies. Like I was a big music fan, but I never like I was just watch cable stuff. So I had like a sparse selection of VHS tapes that weren't porno, right? Like I had to find, so I had an assortment of adult entertainment that was fine. But as far as like stuff that you would watch, like just to chill, like you were like watching dinner or whatever. So what I did have, like I had very few like actual things that I could, watch in the meantime when I wasn't, before I had the cable hooked up. But one of the things that I did have, and one of the things that I ended up watching like on a fucking loop, like it was ridiculous. I must have watched this tape 15,000 times. Was remember back in the day, if you want VHS tapes, you could like, if you wanted to record high quality, you get like one movie on a VHS tape. Like the tape would tell you like 90 minutes standard play, 180 minutes like what extended play, and they'd be like super excited. So like on the lowest quality setting, my brother's friend, my younger brother's friend, who, check this out, he ended up later, like his parents late in life got into Scientology. So this kid, while he was still friends with my brother, got into and started going to a Scientology school. So like it was like a trip. Like at one time, at one point when like knowing about Scientology and like how weird it was, like I hung out with his parents and like my mom while they were like just chilling and talking to her, and I could tell like the lingo coming out was weird, and like he was telling me about like his plans and like what they were telling him about like how they could help him with his music career, and this kid was like, I don't know, like whatever. But anyway, on this VHS tape, he had recorded "My Best Friend Is a Vampire," "Clueless," and "Mallrats," the second movie by Kevin Smith. And for whatever reason, I had ended up with this tape in my possession. And at that point, I had never even seen Mallrats. I knew Kevin Smith from Clerks, and I had seen Chasing Amy in the theater, but for whatever reason, I had skipped out on Mallrats. So whatever, Stan Lee's first kind of Stan Lee became famous for like appearing in like all the Marvel movies and like making all sorts of crazy appearances in movies. His first kind of like modern like showing up in movies was in Mallrats. He shows up in Mallrats. He's doing a comic book signing in this mall that two of the guys are visiting. One of the guys is Jason Lee, noted skateboarding aficionado and famous Scientologist. And it's just so crazy because this is all coming together because Danny Masterson has just been convicted of 2 counts of, was it aggravated sexual like rape. So he's going away for like at least 30 years or more. And what's funny is that Danny Masterson's character Hyde on that 70s show, which started in 1998. Remember that? And we're talking about nostalgia loops, and that 70s show is starting in the late 90s when it's supposed to be happening in the mid to late 70s. And it was such a hit. It was a hit because the nostalgia loop. His character, friggin' what was it, Kelso or whatever? Is that the guy? I forget what the hell's this guy's character's name. Is he's the guy that comes up with the line, "Zen ends when ass kicking begins." And the reason that that's funny is the guy who sued me, Blue Chicken Boy, who sued me, that was his big phrase. He used to go around justifying coming after people, going, "Zen ends when ass kicking begins." And I would always point out, like, that is like the stupidest thing. Like, you say that like it's a real badass thing to say. Number one, you're showing your audience doesn't know anything about like New Age enlightenment or reaching the next level beyond anything, ascendancy or anything, because you would never want Zen to end, and you would never, if Zen ends when ass kicking begins, that's why you don't engage in ass kicking. Like, you've just proven the point that you don't get it, and you've also kind of proven the point why it's nonsensical to think that any enlightened blue bird people would come here and say, "You're the jackass. You're the jackass through whom we're going to get our ridiculous message through because you don't get it." It's the stupidest thing. But so, you know what I mean? And Danny Masterson, Scientologist. So so it's all like blah. But so it's time loops. And in the movie, Jason Lee's character comes up to Stan Lee and is trying to ask him all these questions, and Stan Lee keeps on trying to redirect the questions to him to things about emotions and feelings and trying to make certain points to the character. But then, he refers to them says, "Stay tuned, true believer." Like he used to end all the comic books, referring to the audience members, the comic book readers as the true believers. And that's where I took that name. And I remain the elephant in the room. His name was Hyde, right? Oh, Kelso was like he was the John Travolta character, right? Well, that was like the guy that ended up with Demi Moore and the other gal. Hyde, right? Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's funny because I know that Jilly Beans follows that channel growing up in Scientology, and he pointed out the fact that in the John Travolta Nicolas Cage movie Face Off, Danny Masterson is in that movie, and that movie is from 1997, right around the 25-year nostalgia loop. And in that movie, Danny Masterson plays a date rapist. Kelso is played by Ashton Kutcher. There you go. Now, folks, when we talk about the nostalgia loops, that's a long-winded way, but that establishes kind of what we're going with. And even mentioning, you know, He of the Forbidden Feather. And and the Red Torch report is not a report. It's nonsense. Everything in the report is true. I don't deny any of it, because it's all just a glorious repetition of what you all saw happen on the internet through 2016 and 2017. You know what I mean? It's just our internet history, but we'll go over it at some point. But not today. What we're going to talk about today is June 2nd. So I've been obsessed with these nostalgia loops. The 20-year nostalgia loop, the 25-year nostalgia loop, the 10-year nostalgia loop, whether it's by nature or nurture, whether because of our human psychology and our human history patterns, they become enforced, or because of media and the prevalence of mass media, or something transpersonal and esoteric and metaphysical at play. Though I don't think that anything's supernatural. I think anything that exists is natural. So if there's ghosts, it's not supernatural. If there's a phenomenon of ghosts, then that phenomena is not supernatural. That phenomena is natural. We just don't know what the physics, what the natural laws, about them are. And I'm not presupposing a belief in ghosts. I'm just, talking out loud here. My apologies. June 2nd. So when I look at certain days just pass by. So I've gotten to the habit. I apologize. Let me just I have to blow my nose. Let me just do this for a minute. Maintain a little bit of civility here and turn off the. Oh my God. You should see what I'm trying to blow my nose with. I literally have like elementary school, like, oh my God, paper towels here. Oh, I've been sitting doing paperwork so long. This is going to be the day that I get like the leg cramps, I swear. I'm in the habit of looking at the Wikipedia articles for specific days, and it's today's June 7th. You can go and there'll be a Wikipedia day for June 7th, and it will show you all the events that occurred throughout human history, the recorded events that have Wikipedia pages. They're all collated for that day. And there are certain days where nothing really stands out. And there are certain days that stand out just for, wow, it seems that a lot of things have happened. And then there are days that stand out because not only has something happened, or does it look like there's a lot of energy happening on that day, like things seem to happen on that day, but there's a theme. And June 2nd was one of those days. When I looked at the Wikipedia article for June 2nd, it immediately jumped out to me that I was going to do a video about June 2nd. And when I got to going through the days, you always end up looking for the days around, the actual nostalgia loops that we're looking at. So you look at the year 2003 for the 20-year nostalgia loop. You look at 1983 for the 40-year nostalgia loop. You look for 100-year anniversaries. You look for threes, and you look for the big anniversaries to see if anything really jumps out. And when I got to this year, the June 2nd, 1983, the 40th anniversary, something did jump out. Now, I'm going to tell you a funny story. Originally, I made a mistake, and I thought there was an unusual connection between what happened on June 2nd, 1983, and William Burroughs, meaning that I thought that there was all this extra connection to the 23 Enigma and all this stuff. That was based on the fact that I had made a mental error and had confused the location where one of the locations where this accident had occurred with where William Burroughs was from and where he ended up living near his demise. So even with that, when that had kind of occurred and I had discovered that, it took a little wind out of my sails. But still, my research went on, and then something even weirder was found around this particular event that happened in 1983. But oddly enough, I didn't end up making the video. June 2nd, my personal June 2nd, just didn't end up allowing for that time. And then when you're making a video about a particular day like June 2nd, it becomes odd when that particular day passes, and then June 3rd and June 4th. And then it didn't seem like, well, maybe that time has passed or it'll be a Patreon of it. And then it seemed like, oh God, maybe the video will never happen. And then yesterday, the air was very, very weird when I got out of the office. And I would have sworn that there was a riot or massive fires near where I was. I could hear commotion. I could hear, what I thought was chanting. I did not know what the heck was going on. I quickly got into the car and I called my ex-wife and I said, listen, I'm headed towards you guys, but I'm going to tell you, I'm headed out of here. It smells like there's fire. I don't know what the hell's going on, and blah, blah, blah. And she tells me, no, it's Canadian wildfires. And I said, what? She said, yeah, there's Canadian wildfires, and apparently all the smoke is coming down. And she says it's going to be happening for a couple of days. Now, that was really strange because what had happened in 1983 involved Canada, it involved fire, and it involved smoke. So June 2nd has its own particular energy. So I'm going to go all through June 2nd. Then I'm going to double back to 1983, the event of 1983. And then I'm going to talk about one particular guy who lost his life in the tragedy in 1983. A Canadian singer-songwriter, a folkie. And we're going to talk about 3 of his tunes. And then we'll return to talking about the fact that shortly after the 40th anniversary, the smoke from the Canadian wildfires started coming across the borders of the United States. And it is what it is. And it is what it is. Okay? So, there you go. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And where there's fire, there's Canada. Now, my question is this, and I shouldn't say this as a person in recovery, but you know what I mean? If we're going to be inundated from the smoke from a national border fire, why can't it be a Mexican forest fire? It's a joke. A Canadian forest fire is just as good. Spank Flap says three conspiracy theorists walk into a bar. The barman says this can't be a coincidence. Mario Heat. We will also talk about CW's favorite tragically hip song. Spoiler alert, it's a Stan Rogers cover. June 2nd, I actually made a Word document. I made a Word document pulling apart and pulling out everything that I thought was thematically related to what I had discovered about June 2nd. And I can tell you this is that the irony was that I probably didn't need to, because the funny thing was that almost every entry in this Wikipedia article got into my Word document. If I'm lying, I'm dying. What's he saying? Stop sharing. I'll just read it because I don't want to do anything. June 2nd in history. Energy vibe message. Boundaries and borders and the breaching and changing of same. Whether in the physical or ether, watch your perimeters and guard your forts, or if you're fixing to make a move, it's go time. Evidentiary support. 455 BC, the sack of Rome. On June 2nd, the Vandals enter Rome and plunder the city for 2 weeks. In 1098, during the First Crusade, the first siege of Antioch ends as Crusader forces take the city. The second siege began 5 days later. 1608, the colony of Virginia gets a charter extending borders from sea to sea. 1692, Bridget Bishop is the first person to be tried for witchcraft in Salem, Massachusetts. She was found guilty and later hanged. Now, we had been looking at cities being invaded, but this is a woman being found guilty of witchcraft, but that still has to do with hygiene of the populace, maintaining against infection, maintaining against ideas. 1763, Pontiac's Rebellion. At what is now Mackinac City, Michigan, Chippewas capture Fort Michilimackinac by diverting the garrison's attention with a game of lacrosse, then chasing a ball into the fort. 1774, Intolerable Acts. The Quartering Act is enacted, allowing a governor in colonial America to house British soldiers in uninhabited houses, outhouses, barns, or other buildings if suitable quarters are not provided. Again, an issue with people's right to their spaces and preventing the invasion of those spaces. And we know what happened in reaction to that. 1780, the anti-Catholic Gordon riots in London leave an estimated 300 to 700 people dead. Again, dealing with populations not being able to deal with each other, borders not being able to be resolved. 1793, French Revolution. Francois Henriot, leader of the Parisian National Guard, arrests 22 Girondists selected by Jean-Paul Marat, setting the stage for the Reign of Terror. 1805, Napoleonic Wars. A Franco-Spanish fleet recaptures Diamond Rock. an uninhabited island at the entrance to the bay leading to Fort de France from the British. 1835, P.T. Barnum and his circus start their first tour of the United States. The dissemination of information and entertainers hitting the road. That'll make sense. 1896, Guglielmo Marconi applies for a patent for his wireless telegraph, information spreading across borders more freely. 1919, anarchists simultaneously set off bombs in 8 separate U.S. cities. Remember, my magic numbers are 22 and 8. 1924, U.S. President Calvin Coolidge signs the Indian Citizenship Act into law, granting citizenship to all Native Americans born within the territorial limits of the United States. Again, addressing issues related to borders and the mitigating and understanding the nationality of citizens and peoples and how they are acclimated to each other. 1941, World War II, German paratroopers murder Greek civilians in the village of Kondomari and Alikonos. Invasion by foreign forces, invasions, and citizens being killed. Watch your borders and parameters. We see forts being taken, cities being taken, people being invaded. 1946, birth of the Italian Republic. In a referendum, Italians vote to turn Italy from a monarchy into a republic. After the referendum, King Umberto II of Italy is exiled. 1953, the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II at Westminster Abbey becomes the first British coronation and one of the first major international events to be televised. Remember, this is June 2nd. That event is televised on the anniversary that Marconi applies for the patent for the wireless. 1962, during the FIFA World Cup, police had to intervene multiple times in fights between Chilean and Italian players in one of the most violent games in football history. People just can't get along internationally on June 2nd. Borders are in question and borders are problems. And there's also an anniversary of things happening during games. Because remember, we had that it was in 1763, that ball game. It was on the 201st anniversary of the Pontiac's Rebellion, where the Indians were like, hey guys, check this out. Oh shit, the ball. We're going after it. We're the forts. It was on the 201st anniversary that the Italians and the Chileans had to keep on getting busted up on the field by the cops. These weren't the football hooligans that had to be intervened with. These were the players multiple times. 1964, the Palestinian Liberation Organization is formed. 2 years later, the Surveyor program. Surveyor 1 lands in Oceanus Procelorum on the moon, becoming the first U.S. spacecraft to soft land on another world. 1967, Louis Monge is executed in Colorado's gas chamber in the last pre-Furman execution in the United States. That was a famous case that caused a moratorium on executions for a little bit of time. We're not going to go into Louis Monge. He's a nightmare. 1967, protests in West Berlin against the arrival of the Shah of Iran are brutally suppressed, during which Benno Onzorg is killed by a police officer. His death results in the founding of the terrorist group Movement to June, that was later absorbed into the Red Army faction, I think. 1979, Pope John Paul II starts his official visit to his native Poland, becoming the first pope to visit a communist country. Borders and boundaries being crossed. In 1983 is when we get the Air Canada Flight 797 event. We'll come back to that. In 1997, in Denver, Timothy McVeigh is convicted on 15 counts of murder and conspiracy for his role in the 1995 bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, in which 168 people died. He was executed 4 years later. 2003, 20-year nostalgia loop. Europe launches its first voyage to another planet, Mars. The European Space Agency's Mars Express probe launches from the Baikonur Space Center in Kazakhstan. Ever hear anything about it? 2012, 11 years ago, former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak is sentenced to life imprisonment for his role in the killing of demonstrators during the 2011 Egyptian Revolution. Folks, are you like me? Do you say to yourself, gee, when I think about all those world-changing news stories, it's funny how they occur. They're the news story of the day, but almost like a one-hit wonder pop band. They're the news story of the day, and then all of a sudden, it's gone, right? Like ISIS. They were like Nazi Germany for like a summer, and then they were gone. Or like the Arab Spring. It was a revolution, and it was changing. There was going to be all these new governments that we were going to deal with, and there's going to be freedom around, and then Stugatz, like nothing. And folks, I guess the Syrian civil war is still going on. 2022, following a request from Ankara, the United Nations officially changed the name of the Republic of Turkey in the organization from what was previously known as Turkey to Turkey. It's spelled differently. As far as births, in 1731, Martha Washington, the First Lady of the United States, was born. 1740 saw the birth of the Marquis de Sade. 1743, just 3 years after the Marquis de Sade, an individual named Alessandro Cagliostro was born, an Italian occultist and explorer who you should look up because it goes to show you the David Wilcox of the world are nothing new. The Blue Bird Sphere Being Alliance, look at the Rosicrucians, look at Cagliostro. These games are as old as time itself. And you know what, folks? There were guys back in the day writing articles about these guys are full of shit. Don't listen to these guys. These guys are totally idiotic. Michelle Steele, the bass player from the Bangles, my favorite Bengal, was born in 1955 on this day. At 1959 saw the birth of Lydia Lunch. Zachary Quinto was born in 1977. 1978 saw the birth of Yi So-yoon, biotechnologist and astronaut, the first Korean in space. In 1948, on this day, the German physicians were killed. They were executed. Who were the German physicians? They were the authors of the Final Solution. They were the authors of the genocidal program to get rid of the so-called mental defectives and physical defectives. They were Karl Brandt, Karl Gebhardt, Waldemar Hoven, and Wolfram Sievers. They were found guilty, and it was the United States versus Gebhardt versus I think it was Brandt et al., and they were executed on June 2nd. 2014 saw the death of Alexander Shuglin. You may remember him. He invented MDMA, also known as ecstasy. So let me take a minute to just say hello to everyone in the live chat. The elephant in the room gets the gold medal for being first. We got Julie Beans, a good old second, silver place winner. We got Lunar Sparkles grabbing that bronze. We have Mario Heat with us as well. Did I mention we got Golden Coin 100? We have Jason Albert with us as well. We got Barry Collins. Barry Collins with us. Shout out to Barry Collins. We've got Spank Flaps. Mentioned earlier. There you go. We have Sarah the Mage joining us. Barry Collins has some insight. Barry Collins says, what is going on? Here we go. Here we go. The Americans Have You Beat. The Study of Cycles. Fairly prophetic shit. You can tell the fortune of the human race based on the cyclical planetary cycles. Well, if it lines up, it lines up. We'll see. We'll see. Sarah the Mage experiments with us as well. We also say hello to Super Spectrum Incorporated. There you go. There you go. There you go. We have Prag Magic joining us as well. Got shout out to Danny Jesus and the Jerks. Up, Mario Heat. 23 Enigma, 23-year nostalgia loop. Today in 2000, United States District Judge Thomas Jackson orders the breakup of Microsoft into two companies, one producing operating systems, the other producing application programs. There you go. And in 2004, Apple Computer announces the Airport Express Wireless Network Station. Price is US $129. Coincidence? I don't think so. Now check this out. Air Canada Flight 797. The 23 Enigma and the 20-year nostalgia loops. I wrote the 23 Enigma before I realized that William S. Burroughs wasn't from where I thought he was from. The flight left from Dallas Fort Worth International Airport, headed to Montreal Dorval International Airport. Dallas. JFK. JFK blown away. What more do I have to say? It's there. It's Dallas. You guys, look, it's Dallas. You can mention it, right? The 2nd of June, 1983. 40 years ago today. Obviously, I wrote that 5 days ago. It was on a McDonnell Douglas DC 932. So the magic numbers are 9, 3s, 6s, and obviously 23. The 32 is the 23 reversed. 90 seconds after the plane landed and the doors were opened, the heat of the fire and fresh oxygen from the open exit doors created flashover conditions, and the plane's interior immediately became engulfed in flames, killing 23 passengers, half the people on board, who were unable to evacuate the aircraft. Now remember, this was Air Canada Flight 797. If you add 7 plus 9 plus 7 together, you know what you get? You get the number 23. The flight's captain, it's a guy named Donald Cameron. His age was 51. If you add a 5 and a 1 together, you get 6. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 plus 2 is 5. 3 minus 2 is 1. Holy shit. Have been employed by Air Canada since March 1966. And had been qualified as a DC 9 captain in November 1974. If you add 1 plus 9 plus 7 plus 4 together, you get 21. But if you add 2 and 1 together, you get 3. While the flight was over Louisville, Kentucky, I underlined that, and I got all excited because I thought that William S. Burroughs was from Louisville, Kentucky. He's not. I think he's from Kansas. So I got screwed up. So a fire started in or around the rear lavatory of the aircraft. Now listen, so the fire started while they were over Louisville, Kentucky, right? In June 2nd of 1983, okay? 40 years ago. 20 years ago, on the 20-year nostalgia loop, Louisville, Kentucky changed its its city county designations, and the borders of the city and the borders of the county became exactly the same. They merged. There was a city county merge that occurred in Louisville, Kentucky in 2003. There you go. Both flight recorders stopped recording at some point. So that was like, this is when I thought it was still connected to William Burroughs, because, you know, the whole thing with recording systems and stuff. The PA system also failed. Hey, leaving the flight attendants unable to communicate efficiently with the passengers. Nevertheless, attendants were able to move all passengers forward of row 13 and to instruct passengers sitting in exit rows on how to open the doors. That wasn't standard operating procedure at the time. Less than 90 seconds after touchdown, so the plane was going down. They couldn't operate, so they did an emergency ditch landing. They managed to land successfully. It was after that they landed that they opened the doors. It was when they opened the doors that the influx of air caused the minor fire that was on board to go blow up and basically killed half the people on board. And basically what happened was, if the people got out, the people that got out scot-free. And the people that didn't get out scot-free were burnt to a crisp. Less than 90 seconds after touchdown, the interior of the plane flashed over and ignited, killing the remaining 23 passengers on board, which was exactly half of the people on board. Okay. We say hello to Matt Fenger. So it was because of this flight that they now, you know, when you get on a flight and they stop everything, they say, oh, you know, if you look to these directions, these things, and these things is how you get out. And you know how if you're sitting next to an exit, a door, they say to you, if you're not comfortable sitting next to or being able to help other people get out, tell us and we'll change your seat. That's all as a result of Air Canada Flight 797, because prior to that, those weren't standard instructions. And because those weren't standard instructions, they couldn't give those indications out to people. That was the feeling. So every time you go to a an international a flight and you get those instructions, you are now part of the nostalgia loop, because you're experiencing the nostalgia loop because it happened, you know, 40 years ago on June 2nd. Now, if I go to, hold on, the Wikipedia article, you see it's there. Da 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 da. Investigation. Here we go. Now, what I want to do is notable passengers. Here's where it's going to get a little bit unusual. I may have skipped over some stuff, and you know, if I'd gone over the Wikipedia article rather than my quick notes, maybe this would have been a little bit more impressive. But Liz, notable passengers: Canada folk singer Stan Rogers, 33, was killed by smoke inhalation. Rogers was known for songs such as Northwest Passage, The Mary Ellen Carter, and Barrett's Privateers. He was returning home after attending the Careville Folk Festival in Texas. I want to talk to you about those songs. If we go Stan Rogers is a beautiful chap. If we go to the Northwest Passage, this song by Stan Rogers, it's an a cappella song. It features Rogers alone singing the verses with several guest vocalists harmonizing with him in the chorus. Let's see. When it recalls the history of early explorers who were trying to discover a route across Canada to the Pacific Ocean. So the song, the Wikipedia article that notes Stan Rogers' death in the Flight 797 disaster notes his association with three famous songs: Northwest Passage, The Mary Ellen Carter, and Barrett's Privateers. Now remember, I had been noting that this day, June 2nd, had this energy of information going from space to space, and also about fortification, maintaining your boundaries, maintaining your perimeters, and how to get over boundaries and perimeters, how to get out, like Marconi's wireless communication, or the Pope going into the communist country, invading boundaries but also maintaining boundaries, or getting rid of the witches or the Catholics and stuff like that. And bear that in mind when we talk about this. And then we also have these notions of these tragedies, like we see, people like we have to get rid of, we have to convict, Timothy McVeigh. But, of course, Timothy McVeigh is, fighting, his own fight or whatever. But look at this. So this Northwest Passage is about explorers. They're trying to get through the Canadian wilderness to get to this Pacific Ocean. The song's central theme is a comparison between the journeys of these past explorers and the singer's own journey to and through the same region. The singer ultimately reflects that, just as the quest for a Northwest Passage might be considered a fruitless one, in that a viable and navigable Northwest Passage was never found in the days of Franklin and his kind, a modern-day journeyer along similar paths might meet the same end. When Peter Guzowski of CBC's national radio program Morningside asked Canadians to pick an alternate national anthem, Northwest Passage was the overwhelming choice of his listeners. Lyrics. The narrator states that he is taking passage over land in the footsteps of brave Kelso. You cannot make this shit up. 3 centuries after. This refers to Henry Kelsey, an English explorer and trader apprenticed to the Hudson's Bay Company in 1684. Yo, look at that year. Who was commissioned to explore the prairies in response to the competition posed by French traders. Rogers confessed in an interview in 1982 that during the writing of the song, he had not been sure of Kelsey's name and had guessed it was Kelso when recording the song. You motherfuckers. The lines, to find the hand of Franklin reaching for the Beaufort Sea and seeking gold and glory, leaving withered broken bones and long forgotten lonely cairn of stones, commemorate the Franklin expedition. Folks, there's a role-playing game called Cairn, and for Gold and Glory is a remake of the second edition of Dungeons & Dragons. I don't know. That's why I gotta throw that out there. Yo, Barrett's Privateers is a modern folk song in the style of a sea shanty, written and performed by Canadian musician Stan Rogers, having been inspired after a song session with the Friends of Fiddler's Green at the Northern Lights Festival. Barrett's Privateers is full of many authentic details of privateering in the late 18th century. The song was released on the album Fogarty's Cove in 1976, a year after I was born. Plot: Barrett's Privateers is sung from the point of view of a young fisherman who, in 1778, at the age of 16, enlisted on El Cid, Barrett's ill-fated Antelope, with the promise that the resulting trip would be a pleasure cruise with no violence. The Antelope is described as the scummiest vessel he'd ever seen. Remember, Stan Rogers died on an airplane where a fire broke out in the lavatory. And the song describes the many faults of the decrepit slope, which had just received a letter of marque from the George III to operate as a privateering ship. The narrator repeatedly indicates that the Antelope is poorly prepared for her mission. Among her many faults, the privateer crew is composed of fishermen, the vessel lists to port, and the sails are compared to rags. The narrator later described the crew manning 4-pound guns, which would have been hopelessly undersized and inadequate for the task. A standard gun of the period includes 24 and 36-pound guns. The sloop leaves on June 4th. He goes down on June 2nd and takes 3 months to make it to Montego Bay, Jamaica. The closing verse moves ahead to 1784 as the survivor has only the day prior returned to Nova Scotia, still bitter at having been lied to and lying broken on a pier in Halifax, longing to return to his notably anachronistic home of Sherbrooke. And finally, the Mary Ellen Carter. This is where the wedgie goes atomic, folks. So I don't know if this is doing anything for anybody, but this to me seems incredible. But when we get to the Mary Ellen Carter song, I think this is where it gets pretty weird. The Mary Ellen Carter is a song written and first recorded by Stan Rogers in 1979. That would be 4 years before his death. Original version. The song chronicles the efforts to salvage the ship. It tells the story of a heroic effort to salvage a sunken ship. The eponymous Mary Ellen Carter, by members of her crew. We've patched her rents, stopped her vents, dogged hatch and porthole down, put cables to her fore and aft, and girded her around. Tomorrow noon we'll hit the air, and then take up the strain, and make the Mary Ellen Carter rise again. The song ends with an inspirational message to people to whom adversity has dealt the final blow. Never give up, and like the Mary Ellen Carter, rise again. Legacy. Now listen to this. Here's connection to the sinking of the Marine Electric. On February 12th, 1983, 40-year nostalgia loop, before the death of Stan Rogers, shortly before the death of Stan Rogers, right? Months before the death of Stan Rogers. On February 12th, 1983, the ship Marine Electric was carrying a load of coal from Norfolk, Virginia to Somerset, Massachusetts. This is in America. And Somerset, Massachusetts, the worst storm in 40 years, blew up that night, and the ship sank at about 4 o'clock in the morning on February 13th. The ship's chief mate, 59-year-old Robert M. Bob Cusack, was trapped in the deckhouse as the ship went down. His snorkeling experience helped him avoid panic and swim to the surface, but he was left to spend the night alone on a partially deflated lifeboat he eventually reached. In water barely above freezing and air much colder, huge seas washed over him, and each time he was not sure that he would ever reach the surface again to breathe. Battling hypothermia, he was tempted to allow himself to fall unconscious and be washed away. Just then he remembered the concluding stanzas of the Mary Ellen Carter. And you, to whom adversity has dealt the final blow, with smiling bastards lying to you everywhere you go, turn to and put out all your strength of arm and heart and brain, and like the Mary Ellen Carter, rise again. Rise again, though your heart be broken or life about to end. No matter what you've lost, be it home, a love, a friend, like the Mary Ellen Carter, rise again. As Cusack tells in One Warm Line, a documentary about Rogers, he started to sing it and soon was alternately shouting out, rise again, and holding his breath as the seas washed over him. At 7 o'clock in the morning, a Coast Guard helicopter spotted him and pulled him to safety. Only 3 men of the 34 who had been aboard survived the wreck. After his ordeal, Cusack wrote a letter to Stan Rogers telling him what had happened and crediting the song with saving his life. In response, Rogers invited Cusack to attend what turned out to be the second to last concert Rogers ever performed. Cusack lived another 30 years, and his testimony and activism in the aftermath of the accident spurred far-reaching maritime safety reforms. Stan Rogers Canadian. You're okay, Loon Sparkles. It's okay, but you know what I mean? Now, weird stuff, weird, crazy stuff. And enough there to be warrant, wow, coincidence? There's an awful lot there to just call a coincidence. And but think about it this way. If I had recorded that video on June 2nd, and then all of a sudden we had these Canadian wildfires, oh man, I would have looked way crazier, big, huge deal. Not that anyone would have noticed because no one pays attention to any of my videos, and it's like nuts. It's like these jerks come out here and say nonsense silliness with nothing even interesting about it, and they get views, and I come out here with I think is like, I'm not even trying to oversell it, but maybe it's in the lack of that I'm not overselling it, or that I've already let people know that I'm kind of skeptical and therefore I'm not, playing the game right. I don't know. But to me, this is like fascinating, the little strange coincidences. But it is what it is. So I did nothing with it. And then, like I said, fires from Canada. And I was like, well, then I guess you have to say something. And it's not that I'm here trying to make any sort of argument for, causation. I'm just making an argument for if you look at life, if you investigate, there's interesting things. There does seem to be, you know, patterns in the dust print. And there does seems to be, objects of fascination worth being fascinated with. We need to be wary because there's obviously, things that can just, befuddle and cause us to come into, delusion and to be uh, danced in front of smoke and mirrors and charming lights. And how to tell the difference, I don't know. Jonty Thackeray. The Canadian government has apologized for Bryan Adams on several occasions. It'll never be enough. Jonty Thackeray. Nobody talks about my turn of the millennia hit. Nobody going to take these Twin Towers down. It's been wiped. It's been wiped from the memory banks. Wiped from the memory banks. None dare call it conspiracy. I urge you to take a look in the description box below and realize that I still have a Patreon. I still have alternative channels. You never know where I'm going to be. You never know where I'm going to show up. But I'm out there. I'm out around doing things, being wild and crazy. And just pulled one card. I pulled three. I did a little reading from the Egyptian Tarot from 2003. The Moon, the Tower, the Knight of Swords. So I like to do this so it reads for you like it reads for me. That never works. Yang. I always gotta remember, don't look at you, look at me. Because if I look at the camera, then I'll start flubbing things up. The moon, the tower, the night. As I'll go through them like it. So here we go. The Moon, the Tower, the Knight of Swords. So the Moon. So there's a general clarification. There's a general clarification I see going from the Moon here is a mystery. There's power, there's majesty, there's wells to gain so much from, but be careful, you can fall in. There's things to be scared of. There's things that go bump in the night. It is the subconscious. It is dreamland. The mysteries are there, but the mysteries are fraught. The Tower, but that is, it seems to me, our origin point. We're coming from this space of the grand mysteries, the subconscious, the undefined, the cosmic. And in this Tower, we see, when things that are the things that we put together as our safe institutions, as our boundaries. We're talking about this whole notion of boundaries and parameters and forts and castles and institutions and countries and national borders, that we want them to be permanent. We want them to be safe. We want them to be secure. But the reason that they're there is because they point to the reality of what is, which is life is fundamentally unsecure. We are open. We are vulnerable. Things are subject to change. We react to the witch. We burn the Catholic. We hunt down the other because we know that the idea can invade and we can be changed. We can be altered. We even are permeable. And that can be scary. So it's like you look into the abyss looks back. Well, that grand revelation, that grand recognition can cause everything to come apart. You can look into the mystery, hoping for clarifications and answers, but finding only a grander, bigger question like, who are you that asks the question? Who am I? Who are you that asks the question? I am blah, blah, blah. I did not ask for your name. I asked for who are you that asks the question? You know what I mean? Flunk, you know what I mean? You screwed up. But out of that, the Knight of Swords, an intellect, there's clarification, and there's movement, and there's a quest, and there's a drive. So after the break of that which we thought was going to present security, yes, there's a fall. But the fall is not to defeat. The fall is to rise again. June 2nd has been recorded by me as Fortress Day for me. Because looking at June 2nd and realizing and understanding that I don't need to look to any astrolabe or zodiacal conglomeration of Ayurvedic wisdom of the seaside charts of Neptune to know and understand that I can read a Wikipedia article and see that all this shit goes down on June 2nd. June 2nd is the day of this shit. Parameters, boundaries, borders, how to get over them, how to maintain them, people's worry and upset over them, and the fact that things can get screwed up and go over them. And fire between Canada and America. And shit going down traveling. And also another thing about zodiac, about tarot cards. Every time an old tarot article or anything refers to travels by boat, just put in airplane. Any referral to a navigation by boat or whatever, like in the Six of Swords or whatever, just put airplane. It's all airplane because we don't use boats anymore. We use planes. It's the same thing. This is another medium that's artificial to natural to unnatural to those who normally walk on the ground, I believe. That's my 2 cents. And that's my video. Okay. I love you. I love you. I love you. If nobody told you they loved you today, somebody just did. That's somebody, CW Chanter. Genocide. What does CW look like? An unemployed golf pro? Because no one is willing to take a shot on the greatest unproven talent in golf pro in this side of the Canadian border. Thank you very much. You hiring? No. If not, shut the fuck up. Got something positive to add? I add it. Stupid as a stupid does. You got stupid questions? Hey, listen, why does Genocide look like the cover of the world's worst down record? Gee, I wonder. Come on, man. Step it up. Step it up. There you go. Listen. I kid because I loathe. I kid because I love. Your Wi-Fi lag. Not sure if this is still live. It's still live. It's not me. It's you. Lunar Sparkles. It's always you. Genocide. Send me a resume. No problem. It's coming here. Open wide, Buttercup. Go to www. I'll see you again real soon. I'll see you all again real soon. Remember, if you see someone playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition, don't hang out with that person. They're no good. They're no good. Disloyal. The Grand Inquisition has begun. There's no forgiveness. No forgiveness. Not welcome back to the table. It's not welcome back to the table. I play millionaire parties. At least I'd like to. Listen, I love you. I'll talk to you soon.